If you're in your 50s or 60s, watch this. Life lessons from 70-year-olds. For over 15 years, our team has had the distinct privilege of collaborating closely with individuals navigating the intricate landscapes of their 60s and 70s. Through countless profound conversations and shared reflections, a powerful recurring theme emerges. A deep-seated desire to impart hard-won wisdom to their younger 50-something selves. If these seasoned individuals could somehow journey back in time, armed with the invaluable insights garnered from decades of living, experience, and observation, this is precisely the counsel they would offer. We've compiled 10 truly transformative pieces of advice here, each one invaluable. It's worth noting that the seventh piece of advice in particular is something I confess I continue to grapple with personally. Ironically, it's exactly what a wise 70-year-old client specifically warned me not to do, and it's a surprisingly common trap that many retirees inadvertently fall into. While it might be too late for some of these individuals to completely alter their path, it is absolutely not too late for you, our audience, to benefit from their hindsight. So let's dive straight into the very first and arguably most impactful piece of counsel. The initial piece of wisdom, one that often strikes the deepest chord and resonates most profoundly with those in their 70s or even 80s, is this. Be aware of the 3 stages of life and don't miss the one magical stage that only lasts a little bit of time. Our time on this earth is not limitless, and there's a particular precious window of opportunity that many unfortunately overlook or underestimate. Allow me to elaborate on what our 70-year-old clients consistently observe. As they cast their gaze back over their life's journey, they typically identify 3 distinct overarching periods. The first stage largely encompasses our vibrant 20s and perhaps extends into our early 30s. During this dynamic phase, we are generally blessed with an abundance of physical energy, robust health, and a seemingly endless expanse of time. These are the natural, exuberant gifts of youth. However, resources are often scarce. Money is frequently in short supply as we are just embarking on our professional paths, diligently building foundational careers and establishing ourselves in the world. Then comes what many consider the heart of midlife, roughly spanning our 40s and 50s. In this period, the financial picture often brightens considerably. We begin to accumulate wealth, climb career ladders, and achieve professional successes. Physically, we are generally still quite capable, possessing the energy and vitality to pursue a wide array of activities. Yet, this stage is frequently characterized by a glaring deficit: time. The vast majority of our waking hours are intensely consumed by the demanding requirements of our careers and the all-encompassing responsibilities of raising families. Hobbies, personal passions, adventurous pursuits, and self-care often take a regrettable backseat, squeezed out by these competing and urgent priorities. The third stage typically commences after retirement as we gracefully enter our 70s and 80s. By this point, time is generally plentiful. The relentless demands of work have ceased, freeing up countless hours. Money, too, is often abundant, the well-deserved fruit of decades of prudent saving and investing. The significant challenge here, however, is often health. While some individuals remain remarkably spry and active, for many, physical health begins its inevitable decline, and the subtle, or sometimes not so subtle, changes and limitations of aging become increasingly noticeable. However, our clients have identified a magical 4th stage, a kind of sweet spot, or an equilateral triangle, if you will, nestled perfectly between these transitions. This is where everything aligns beautifully. We possess sufficient time, adequate money, and we are still physically young and healthy enough, typically in our 50s or early 60s, to actively pursue the adventures and experiences that truly call to us, those endeavors that demand a certain degree of physical activity and movement. Yet, we frequently observe people lingering too long in the preceding overly busy phase, perpetually deferring that dream trip that adventurous expedition, or that long-desired hobby. For instance, someone in their early 60s is far more likely to enthusiastically embark on a walking tour through the charming streets of Paris or explore their favorite international city with ease compared to an individual in their 70s or 80s for whom such an undertaking might require significantly more effort, planning, and perhaps even compromise due to physical limitations. This applies to activities like strenuous hiking, adventurous travel, or anything that requires sustained physical engagement. So, the profound lesson is, do not let this magical period slip by unnoticed. Seize it. This pivotal insight flows seamlessly into the next crucial piece of advice, the second in our series. When we specifically focus on the element of time within those life triangles, the consistent counsel we receive from those in their 70s is profound. Don't forget the three types of time. It is remarkably common, almost an unconscious habit, to prioritize two of these categories while completely overlooking or neglecting the third. Yet doing so can inadvertently cause significant harm to the other two, leading to imbalance and discontent. Let me clarify what I mean. To simplify, these three essential types of time are time dedicated to our career or work, time invested in our relationships with family, friends, and community. And then there's the third category, the one we most frequently observe people ignoring, recovery or renewal time. This isn't just about resting, it's about engaging in activities that genuinely replenish our energy, rekindle our spirits, and invigorate our minds. The invaluable advice from the 70-year-olds I know is this: especially during our busiest years, it is paramount to identify precisely what truly renews us, what activities genuinely bring us joy and energy, and then crucially, to make that a non-negotiable priority. What do you genuinely enjoy doing? What activity makes time seem to fly by, leaving you feeling refreshed and alive? Could it be a serene walk in nature, a vigorous workout session, a competitive game of tennis, an immersive hike, the focused craft of woodworking, or perhaps even the invigorating shock of cold plunges followed by the warmth of a sauna? Whatever these rejuvenating activities are for you, make conscious time for them. I recently heard a compelling story from a 55-year-old client who, in a beautiful act of rediscovery, reignited his passion for rock climbing. This was a pursuit he adored in his younger years, perhaps starting as a child, continuing through his teens and 20s, before life's demands gradually pushed it aside. Now, in his 50s, he's diving deep back into the sport, allowing it to become an increasingly significant piece of his identity, perhaps even overshadowing his career. His profound advice was to actively conceptualize your identity and consequently your time, not as a rigid structure, but as a dynamic pie chart. While not everyone is accustomed to such visual metaphors, this is how he framed his existence and consciously decided to reallocate his time. A substantial portion was still dedicated to his career and another significant slice to his family. He was also deeply committed to fitness and his faith. But now, this rekindled passion for rock climbing, he explained, was something he wanted to expand, to allow it to claim an ever larger segment of his life pie. Not necessarily as part of general fitness, but as a distinct, fulfilling pursuit. He consciously chose to scale back on certain career commitments to create more space for rock climbing, even in his 50s. He understood that rock climbing, unlike gentler activities such as swimming, cycling, or even tennis, isn't typically a forever sport that one can easily continue into their 70s or 80s. This realization fueled his urgency to embrace it fully while he still had the physical capacity. Now let's move on to the third vital piece of advice shared from those in their 70s to those currently in their 50s. Before I delve into it, if you're finding value in these insights so far, please consider clicking the like button or leaving a comment. Your feedback is incredibly helpful in guiding me to create content that is most valuable and useful to you. The third piece of counsel, which I've heard with remarkable frequency from our older clients, is this: it's okay to say no more, especially in your 50s. Or reflect for a moment on the first half of your life, particularly your 20s and 30s. During those formative years, you likely said yes to a multitude of opportunities, requests, and challenges. and rightly so. A significant part of the reason you find yourself in your current position with your accomplishments and experiences is precisely because you embraced new ventures, said yes to invitations, and allowed those doors to open for you. However, as you transition into the second half of life, it becomes crucial to recognize and internalize that it is perfectly acceptable, even necessary, to begin saying no more often. This shift is about respecting your own finite time, energy, needs, and desires. Prioritizing that essential recovery and renewal time we just discussed often hinges on your ability to gracefully decline other commitments. It's perfectly acceptable to say no to certain social obligations, new work commitments that don't align with your deepest priorities, or even well-meaning requests from friends if those interactions are not genuinely serving your well-being. The ultimate goal is to prioritize those activities and relationships that genuinely bring you profound joy, inner peace, and a sense of fulfillment. This isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation and intentional living. You've undoubtedly heard it before, and our fourth piece of advice from those in their 70s and 80s to those in their 50s emphatically reinforces it. Remember, time is infinitely more valuable than money. That age-old adage, time is money, is, in the context of life's finite nature, fundamentally misleading. Time is an irretrievable resource. We possess less and less of it with each passing day. Money, on the other hand, especially for those in their 50s, might now be working for you, generating more wealth without any active effort on your part. Yet, your money is certainly not generating more time. Time remains the scarcest, most precious asset we own, even more so than our burgeoning retirement accounts or the assets held in various financial portfolios. For those in their 50s, this is a truly pivotal decade, a critical juncture that will largely set the tone for the entire second half of your life and profoundly influence how everything unfolds. The key here is intentionality, because time from this point forward will only accelerate its pace, likely even faster than you currently realize. The perception of accelerating time is a common, almost universal theme we hear repeatedly from our older clients. There's another powerful piece of advice intimately related to this concept, often encapsulated in the idea that while we cannot magically make more time, there are indeed profound ways we can effectively slow it down or at least extend its quality. Let me illustrate with a compelling example of a client who brilliantly put this into practice. Envision your life's timeline, a certain number of robust, healthy years, followed by a period where our physical capabilities naturally begin to diminish, and then, inevitably, an eventual end date. Now, what if, in your 50s, you made a conscious, unwavering decision to cultivate a consistent habit of fitness, be it cardiovascular exercise, strength training, or a combination? Could that sustained habit genuinely extend the total amount of time you have? More importantly, could it significantly prolong the duration of your healthy years and perhaps mercifully lessen the period of diminished capacity? Could it positively influence your ultimate lifespan? Numerous scientific studies overwhelmingly suggest that yes, this is precisely what happens. While we can never predict the future with absolute certainty, an investment of both time and money into your health is a proven strategy that yields immense, life-altering returns. But there's actually a second ingenious way to gain more time. While we cannot create time out of nothing, we can certainly buy it. In fact, you might already be doing this without fully realizing it. Consider a common scenario. Your car needs an oil change. You might not possess the technical knowledge, nor do you particularly enjoy the task. Your options are clear. You could spend hours watching YouTube tutorials, driving to multiple stores to purchase the specific oil and filter, acquiring the necessary tools, and then dedicating a significant portion of your afternoon, perhaps 2 to 3 hours in total, to perform a task you genuinely dislike. Alternatively, you could make the conscious decision to drive to your local auto shop, have the oil changed professionally in 20 minutes, and perhaps even take a leisurely walk while it's being done. In this second scenario, you've essentially bought back at least 90 minutes of your life, opting to spend that time on something you'd much rather be doing, all while supporting someone who is earning a living for their own family. A subscriber to our channel recently shared a similar experience. "It was time to power wash the deck," he recounted, "and I just don't enjoy doing that anymore, so I decided to simply hire someone to do it. The result? I reclaimed 4 or 5 precious hours of my life, provided meaningful work for someone else, and felt great knowing I contributed to their ability to support their family." Many of our most successful clients embody this mindset: I do what I do best and I pay for the rest. While affordability is always a consideration, if you have the means, strategically buying back your time can make profound sense. There's even a powerful verse in Ephesians that urges us to redeem the time. And upon closer examination, the word redeem in its original context often translates to buy back or to buy up. This perspective deeply informs our role in our clients' lives. Our clients could, in theory, dedicate countless hours to studying, learning, monitoring investments, and diligently applying complex tax and investment strategies to their retirement plans. Or they can partner with us. Our core objective is to empower our clients to gain more of these invaluable resources: more time, more money, greater peace of mind, and renewed energy. The truly wonderful aspect of collaborating with a skilled retirement planner is that you can tangibly observe the return on investment when you buy our time. In essence, how I view our mission can be summarized by the acronym SCCF: Streamline, Clarity, Confidence, and Freedom. That is precisely what we strive to deliver for our clients. The next profound piece of advice comes from a 69-year-old client, and it is beautifully intertwined with this very idea of effectively making more time. We were meeting shortly after her husband had unexpectedly passed away. She was 68 at the time, and as is profoundly common when a cherished loved one departs, particularly a central figure in one's life, she felt a deep sense of disorientation and loss. We diligently worked through the necessary immediate tasks, and then gently we began to explore some upcoming possibilities, things she might genuinely look forward to in the coming year. She shared several ideas revolving around travel, improving her health, and deepening her spiritual faith, listing specific goals under each of these broad areas. Throughout that year, we maintained contact, connecting several times via phone, and I could sense her gradual progress and healing. Then, a year later, we met in person to review a few tax planning strategies she could potentially leverage. I am not exaggerating when I say that upon her entrance into the office, at first glance, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked utterly transformed, radiating a palpable sense of vibrancy, health, and profound renewal. She clarified that she hadn't undergone any cosmetic procedures, but instead had diligently cultivated a few key habits centered around both physical and mental well-being. Specifically, she had embraced regular yoga practice and consistent workouts, dedicating time daily to meditation and spending moments immersed in scripture. Despite being 69, she genuinely looked like she was in her 50s. She told me with a radiant smile, "I feel like I've added 10 healthy years to my life." This was precisely what we had just been discussing: the power to extend one's healthy lifespan. That moment was incredibly inspiring and genuinely surprising to me. Looking back, she had truly discovered how to make more time, or at least how to significantly extend her healthy time. So, the clear and powerful tip here is: prioritize physical health and mental health in your 50s. If we proactively commit to this, we can effectively extend that magical, balanced, equilateral triangle of life we discussed earlier, ensuring we have more time, money, and health simultaneously. Now we arrive at the seventh piece of advice, which, as I mentioned earlier, comes from a client who was only 6 months into his retirement. This is the very piece of counsel that I personally have struggled with and continue to struggle with, and it is remarkably common for those in their 50s and for new retirees alike. I don't particularly like to admit it, but I suspect it often coincides with that well-known phenomenon, the midlife crisis. This insight is about recognizing and resisting the urge to engage in what we call playing the status game. The term status game was eloquently coined by author Will Storr in his insightful book, and it essentially refers to our often unconscious tendency to acquire possessions, experiences, or achievements primarily to signal our success, to project a certain image, or to fit in with a particular social group. The unvarnished truth, however, is that these external markers of status rarely, if ever, bring lasting happiness or profound fulfillment. Let me share the story of the client who provided this critical insight. 6 months into his retirement, as we were diligently mapping out his long-term financial plan, he enthusiastically asked, Can we explore a scenario where I finally buy my dream car? I've always wanted one, and now that I'm retired, it feels like the perfect time to have some fun. I agreed. Absolutely. Let's put it into the plan. We ran the projections, and the financial impact on his overall graph, charts, and income plan was minimal. Everything still looked excellent. Feeling completely confident and justified, he went ahead and purchased his dream car. 6 months later, during a follow-up discussion about some minor optimizations to his investment strategy, I casually inquired, "Hey, how's the Porsche?" You might already guess his response, and I'll share what he eventually decided to do with the car. But first, I want to emphasize that there is absolutely nothing inherently wrong with buying beautiful, well-made things. I know we have many car enthusiast clients who might passionately disagree with my car example here, but the core message is this: it might be incredibly worthwhile to take an extra 10 minutes just to pause and deeply reflect on the underlying reason behind your next significant, expensive purchase, should you choose to make one. You are certainly not obligated to do this, but I'll offer a few examples from others, as this decision around status symbols is frequently, though not exclusively, observed among men. This delves a little deeper, but it's important to explore. I'll even turn the lens on myself to illustrate. Here's why I found myself wanting to buy a fancy watch last year. 1. Validation and recognition. I desired a tangible, visible sign of hard-earned success, something that would subtly communicate, "Hey, I've made it." This need for external validation is often at the heart of acquiring status symbols. 2. Comparison and social pressure. Unfortunately, we live in a society that too often measures our worth by what we possess rather than by who we authentically are. This societal pressure can subtly influence our purchasing decisions. 3. Identity and self-worth. Our identity is frequently closely tied to our careers. As we approach the point of ending our professional lives in retirement, buying an expensive item or several can become an unconscious way to affirm our self-worth, to project an image of stability, influence, or power. 4. Fear of irrelevance. This fourth point often hits quite hard. As we progress into our 50s, a subtle fear of fading relevance can emerge in a world that often disproportionately values youth. Owning high-status items can mistakenly make us feel relevant, signaling that we are still successful and actively in the game. So, returning to my client and his dream car, when I asked him about the Porsche, he replied, "Oh yeah, it's good." But then he elaborated, "Honestly, the initial excitement wore off within a couple of weeks. Looking back, maybe I should have just rented it for a month. That might have been enough for me." His profound advice, therefore, is this: see if you can rent the experience first before you actually buy the expensive thing. In hindsight, he would have much rather spent, say, $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 to rent the Porsche for 30 days, simply to enjoy the experience and determine if that truly satisfied his desire. Perhaps it would have been enough, or perhaps it would have solidified his reason to definitively purchase it. Instead, he spent around $150,000, which he could easily afford, but it was still a substantial outlay just to figure it out. The lesson is clear. If we are willing to rent experiences, we might spend money on something we never own, but in the long run, it could save us a tremendous amount of money and potential buyer's remorse. The next piece of advice comes from multiple clients who, prior to retirement, consistently heard the common wisdom that expenses typically decrease in retirement. However, their lived experience revealed the exact opposite. For the first few years, expenses actually increased, often quite significantly. It then took a period of adjustment, careful reevaluation, and reworking of their financial plan to bring everything back on track. As I mentioned, we've been helping people transition into retirement for a decade and a half. We often incorporate what-if scenarios into their financial plans, exploring questions like, what if your expenses are actually higher than you anticipate right now? What if you embark on several large trips, or decide to purchase a new car, or pursue other significant desires? We specifically plan for what we call the go-go years, referencing that magical equilateral triangle period we discussed, where our clients genuinely want to spend money while they are still young and healthy enough to fully enjoy it. However, even with this forward-thinking approach, sometimes it's not enough. In one recent scenario we discussed, the clients initially estimated their monthly retirement expenses at what seemed a generous $10,000. When we probed further, asking about additional potential costs, what about this? What about that? They consistently dismissed them, saying, "No, we don't see that happening. That's probably not going to occur." Yet, in their very first year of retirement, their actual expenses far exceeded their initial estimates. This often happens because in retirement, there's a powerful "it's now or never" mindset that drives many initial purchases and experiences. While they eventually adjusted their spending and everything is fine now, their crucial advice is start thinking about tracking your expenses. Now, in your 50s. Utilize a robust financial tool such as Monarch Money, which automatically tracks and categorizes your expenses at the end of each month. This allows you to clearly see, oh, we spent this much on groceries this month, good to know, or we spent this amount dining out, that's useful information, or this much went towards vacations. Such tools provide invaluable, real-world data, moving you beyond mere guesswork when it comes to forecasting your retirement expenses. The subsequent piece of advice originates from a client who actually retired in his 50s. With his newfound freedom of time, he consciously focused on what we often refer to as the 3 C's, a concept you might have heard me discuss before. One of these critical C's is connection, and he made it a priority to significantly increase his social connections, far more than he had in the preceding 30 years of his busy working life. One of his first actions was to reach out to an old friend, in fact, one of his best men from his wedding. This was someone he had completely lost touch with during their late 20s, 30s, and 40s, primarily because both men had become incredibly busy, raising families and running their own businesses. It was that demanding period in their lives when they genuinely felt they had no spare time. Now, with the abundance of time afforded by retirement, he reconnected with his friend and he recounted, "It was as if we picked up exactly where we left off, as if we had only stopped talking yesterday." I believe that is a true hallmark of genuine friendship, don't you? You know, that feeling of an instant return to familiarity, even after years apart. If you've ever had such an experience with a friend, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Despite 2 decades of silence, their bond felt immediately rekindled. This sentiment is echoed by many other clients in their 70s and 80s, who frequently express a profound regret that they didn't do more to nurture their relationships, both with old friends and family, during their 50s, before the onset of retirement. It's incredibly easy to become consumed by the daily grind of work and familial responsibilities. However, it is absolutely vital not to forget to intentionally dedicate time and effort to those individuals who genuinely matter most in your life. So, his advice is clear. Make a concerted effort to connect with old friends, actively strengthen your bonds with family, and be open to meeting new people. This might involve joining a club, seeking out groups of individuals who share your passions and interests, much like the rock climber I mentioned earlier. These deep, authentic connections are not merely pleasant, they will provide you with essential support, profound joy, and an invaluable sense of belonging as you navigate your later years. The final piece of advice comes from individuals who perhaps had highly stressful jobs or whose careers were characterized by relentless ambition and pressure. For many, their professional lives became increasingly taxing, reaching a point where they either no longer wanted to continue or simply couldn't endure the stress any longer. Because their lives were so busy and demanding, they often didn't allocate much time to truly contemplate what they would actually do in retirement. Their primary focus, their only real thought, was obtaining more rest and leisure. They simply needed to stop what they were doing because the stress had become unbearable. They weren't particularly worried about the financial aspects, as they were usually well covered in that regard. However, here's the crucial insight. Clients who retired in this manner, people we've spoken with who simply ran away from their demanding careers, often report a surprising phenomenon about 6 months into retirement. They find themselves saying things like, "Retirement is kind of boring," or "Is this really all there is to retirement?" So, the invaluable advice they would now give you is this: don't just run away from something, you really have to focus on what is that thing that you're going to be running towards. This means planning for retirement not merely as a period of endless leisure, but as a purposeful stage of life. Start thinking proactively about what your purpose in retirement will be. It's never too early to begin exploring activities you genuinely enjoyed in the past, perhaps things you temporarily forgot about since your teenage years or 20s, and considering how you might integrate them back into your life right now. In just a few moments, I'm going to provide you with a few thought-provoking questions worth writing down to guide you in making this your absolute best stage of life yet. Remember, true growth doesn't merely arise from the experiences we accumulate. It comes from reflecting deeply on those experiences, extracting lessons, and applying them. You truly have the best stage of your life unfolding before you, with so much to eagerly anticipate and look forward to. If you resonate with that sentiment, please consider giving this video a like. And above all, remember, it is truly not too late for you. Embrace the wisdom shared by those who have journeyed before you. Perhaps pick 2 or 3 of the most impactful pieces of advice you heard today, write them down, and keep them close. Or consider rewatching this video and selecting the 2 most important insights that speak directly to you. Here are the questions to write down and ponder during your next peaceful, quiet morning, perhaps while sipping a warm cup of coffee. This is where a video would typically transition to showing the questions. As per instructions, I'm providing the text without specific editing cues or chapter numbers, just the titles. The questions are implied to follow. Questions for reflection to make this your best stage of life yet. What activities truly make time fly for you, leaving you feeling renewed and energized? How can you intentionally make more space for them in your current life? What past passions or hobbies have you set aside due to career or family demands? How could you begin to reintegrate them, even in small ways, into your daily routine now? Considering the magical 4th triangle of life, time, money, health, are there any experiences or adventures you are currently delaying? What is one step you could take this week to move closer to making one of them a reality? Reflect on your most significant expenses. Are any of them driven by a desire for status or external validation rather than genuine joy or necessity? Is there an experience you could rent or try out before making a large purchase? Who are the friends or family members with whom you've lost touch or whose relationships you feel need strengthening? What is one small, tangible action you can take this week to reconnect or deepen that bond? Beyond leisure, what is a potential purpose or meaningful pursuit you envision for your retirement years? How can you start exploring or preparing for it now? If you're looking to make your retirement journey even better, be sure to check out these other videos. I sincerely hope this was helpful. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.